everyone, it's Katrina from the APDT. Tonight we have a bit of a new thing that we're doing called Member Spotlight. It's actually Kids and Pets Day today, so I'm delighted to be doing our first Member Spotlight with an APDT trainer that writes books for children about dogs. So I'm going to bring her on. Joined tonight by Jo Hinds. Hi, Jo.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. Let's just make sure everyone can hear and see us. If we've got people watching, just pop a little hi in the comments. I'm just going to bring up our little comments screen here. Where are we? Oh no, technical. Normally really good with this. Okay, good. Yeah, we've got people watching, so that's good. Just do a little thumbs up, say hi if you're watching. So, Jo, it is Kids and Pets Day, and there's been lots of things going around on social media about kids and pets. So I thought it'd be really nice today to do our first member spotlight to showcase all our wonderful members. We've just been talking off air, and I didn't realise how long Jo has been working with animals, which we'll get to in a minute. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about you?
Yep, so I'm Jo Hinds. I'm a dog trainer and behaviourist based in the UK, and I'm based in Ruislip, London. I was just saying I've been working in the industry since the age of 16, and I'm now 42. So I've been doing it for a very long time. I've now got in, so not only do I do dog training and behaviour, I also am a dynamic dog practitioner as well, which enables me to identify pain that might be related to behaviour in dogs that might be being missed by their owners and vets as well, which is really linked to, you know, some of the cases that I do, and you might feel like you're not getting anywhere, and actually it's because the dog's got discomfort somewhere. So it's really helped me, and I collaborate with other trainers now and can provide them a service if they're struggling and they feel like one of their dogs that they're working with is you know, not quite right, let's say. So I do a lot of that now, as well as training. I do lots of puppies still. I work with a lot of Romanian rescues and street dogs that come from abroad as well, so I do specialise in that. And then, of course, I've done my books. Actually, I have to do it this way. I have to get used to this camera. So I've written my 2 children's books as well.
Perfect. Yeah. I think we're now much more coming round to the idea that pain, after all the sort of Lincoln studies and everything, and them saying how many referrals. When we had our webinar with Helen Zolt, she was talking about, you know, how many referrals they get that are actually pain related and stuff. So I think it's brilliant that there's now this service that's been set up, and that trainers and behaviourists are going on to be qualified in this kind of thing, because vets get so little time, don't they, in the consult room. So
yeah, and that's it. Often they're missed as well, just because the dog just is too overexcited or panicked on the table, so they're not gonna, and sometimes they're just not displaying the discomfort at that time, as well as chronic pain, as you probably know, and what Helen went through.
Yeah. And was there anything that kind of made you want to get into dog training? Did you have like a menagerie of pets when you were little, or?
I always was brought up with dogs, but I had everything that you can imagine. So I had 74 hamsters at one time. I started off with 2 and then ended up with 74 by accident. They told me that they were 2 males, but they definitely were not. Right. And then I've had different kind of rats and birds, and trained actually a lot of them when I was younger, as well as my kind of, we had a lot of German Shepherds, Chows, Bull Mastiffs. So I definitely loved animals from a very young age, and that come from my dad, really. So
great. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what made you want to write your books?
So obviously I've been working in the industry a long time, and especially from the behaviour side, I can work with some tricky cases and sensitive dogs that might not be comfortable with children. And there has been many occasions when I've been out with dogs on muzzles where children have come running up, like I'm sure everyone else deals with at times, where they've just come up and tried to stroke the dog that you're working with, even with muzzles on and all the other kind of warnings that you try and give. So I felt like there is a missing link there, where there's not enough education from a really young age on what dog body language is, understanding it, not only for the children that might love dogs, but also the children that struggle with dogs and are scared of dogs. So I wrote my book actually because when I fell pregnant with my son, I was when I had him, it inspired me while I was nurturing him and becoming a mum and learning all about that. I started writing the books at that time actually, so because I wanted him to grow up understanding body language, and not to be a child that goes up to and runs up to every dog they see. So that was my inspiration.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I think, I don't know if you feel like this, but I feel like we've changed quite a lot as a society, from dogs being like, don't touch the dog, it's going to bite you, or don't touch the dog like that, it's going to bite you,
Yeah.
to dogs are just public property now, aren't they? And anybody can go and say hello to anybody's dog, and it gets quite challenging sometimes.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's been a lot more onus put on that, when actually, I always say that years ago, it was always, don't go near the dog while it's got the bone, don't wake it up from sleeping, hence the saying, let sleeping dogs lie, all of the kind of standard stuff. But now there's a lot more, I don't know, poor dogs really, that have this expectation of them being able to cope with a lot more than they really can or should have to. So
Yeah, we live in quite a changed society as well, in terms of lifestyle and how much time someone's got for a dog. Everything is busy, 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 and the dog lives a really hectic lifestyle with lots of things going on, and so their levels of stress are already kind of up here somewhere, and then they're expected to go out and just be a robot around children and be like, it's fine, you can pull my ears.
yeah, and if we think about how much, even us as people, a lot of people don't like their face or head touch, just naturally, you kind of shy away from that, and then we wonder why dogs don't particularly like that area. Most dogs don't particularly like that area stroked, and it doesn't really make sense that we, kids or us, go for the head first, really, as that's the end that bites generally anyway. So
Yeah, I wonder where it came from, like pat the dog on the head. Where did that initially ever come from, that there was a dog one day that went, please pat my head? Because most dogs I know never wanted you to pat their head.
no,
Don't get
it's
it.
just that I definitely had a lot of tolerant dogs as I grew up though, because obviously when you're younger, when you look back on what you've learned now to what you did then, you feel sorry for every dog you owned when you were younger. So.
Yeah, I've got some pictures of a really scared cocker spaniel when I got hold of a 35mm camera in the early 90s, and I just kept following this dog around my auntie's house taking photos of her, and she was terrified at the time, and I'm sure the adults were just like, please leave the dog alone, but not really. And now I look and I'm like, oh no, it's terrible, horrible person. um and and do your books differ in their kind of content, and maybe explain a little bit about how they're different?
Yeah, so with What Dogs Like, that was my first book that I wrote, as I said, when Logan was kind of 6 months. That was more of a story book, kind of trying to cover everything in broad range with regards to the subtle signals of body language, as well as just them little messages like letting your dogs, leaving your dog sleeping, and not going near them when they ate, and then kind of explaining why they go from the subtle signals to kind of growling, barking and biting, when we're not listening to their messages. And I tried to write it so that the children also can see it from their perspectives as well, because we know that dogs also jump up at them and nip them and all of that. And kind of, it's definitely my first book was definitely one that you would sit down with your parents to read, because I feel like it's the parents I'm writing that message for as well, so that they can understand actually what they should let their child do and shouldn't. And then that led me on to, I've got lots of others that I'm thinking about doing in the pipeline. So anyone got any ideas? I love getting ideas, but And then I kind of moved on to Ask the Dog, because I felt like I wanted to make a simple message but very bold statement, and it's being used a lot actually in schools now, and with other trainers and therapists actually. So I've got a few therapists that contacted me regarding children that they had with special needs, that they wanted to, because they use dogs in therapy, so they wanted to use the books alongside that. And Ask the Dog, I keep pointing to the wrong side, sorry. Ask the Dog Ask the Dog is basically about how to approach dogs. So if you do want to stroke them, because often people do, and it's giving the dog the choice to make that decision, and for people to recognise when the dog's saying yes please or no thank you, and I wanted to make that message quite simple but get the facts across for both owners and the children as well. So
Great. And you've got some more ideas that you're coming up with, and you're hoping to put some more out, are you?
yeah, I think because I've been dealing with a lot of resource guarding cases recently. I want to do something around that. So I've got a couple of ideas, and some of the other trainers and behaviourists I know was giving me some ideas as well. So I've got a few names, and I often get the names of the books, the ideas first, and then I go ahead with the actual rhyming with it, because I've always just liked rhyming as a kid, so I always wanted to make sure my books rhymed as well. So
Great. Yeah. I mean, we've got like, the really a book that I quite often would recommend to my clients about resource guarding is mine, just because it's very simple. It's very, it's kind of lightweight, but there is quite a good protocol in there for people to follow. But it's also just quite short and catchy, and they'll remember the name. So I think you're onto something there, where it's like just something short and sweet, and get kids involved in that. Because I think we've come to this sort of notion of around resource guarding of like, you should be able to take anything off your dog. Yeah,
Again,
maybe.
yeah.
Do you want to train the dog to teach them that having stuff taken away from them is no big deal first? Maybe.
And stop taking things away from them first. So
Yeah.
they believe that.
Yeah, prevent first, please.
Yeah.
Are there any dog training books that you like to recommend to clients, or to we get quite a few people that watch these that are thinking of being APDT members, so anything like that you think might be useful?
So I think all the traditional ones, definitely, like How Dogs Learn and Don't Shoot the Dogs, they've always been my favourite, just because of how you can, again, How Dogs Learn is quite simple when you're reading that one, actually, to take in some of that information. But I also am very much an advocate for, especially if you're going to be a trainer, to understand the behaviour side as well. So books like In Defence of Dogs from John Bradshaw, the training and behaviour manuals. So I like all of those from Lindsay. Sorry, I'm looking behind me because I can't.
What have I got on my shelf? Yeah.
I definitely also, if you are, you're going to be a trainer, I do think you need to kind of read up about people management as well, and understanding about how to deal with people, because you do kind of sometimes end up, even if you're just training, in a counselling role if you've got a dog and a person that are really struggling with that relationship. So I think I was very naive when I went into this industry, thinking I was going to just be focusing on training dogs, when I really, really had to learn very quickly, the shy me back then, that I need to really cope with dealing with people and groups of people, and how that's going to feel when you're trying to get messages across as well. So I definitely, I've got a whole heap of books. I love them all. One of my favourite puppy books actually at the moment is How to Raise a Puppy by Turid Rugas. I can't remember the other lady's name, but that's a really nice book at the moment, because that focuses on relationship and then training alongside that. So
Great.
I could list them all off. I've got so many, but they'll probably be the ones that I'd start with.
Yeah, and I find that certainly a lot of European trainers versus, the UK and America have quite an interesting take and viewpoint and difference of opinion on the sort of on the sentiment style of things. Not to say that we do it wrong, but you can definitely feel a different style in their training. like Turid and, you know, people like that. Are there any like trainers and behaviourists that you kind of really inspired you or you looked up to when you were younger?
Yeah, lots. I think definitely Chirag's been on my list always. So he's always been one. I just love how he is with people, as well as you know, helping reinforce people's behaviour alongside training dogs as well. And just that mindful thinking. Daniel Mills, although not a trainer as such, I've always followed him. I love all his research and things that he's taught me, so I often follow those kinds. A lot of the APDT members I follow as well, but you know, yourself. So,
Oh no.
But yeah, I have a lot of Suzanne Clothier, Clothier, I can never say that. I do follow. Who else? I'm trying to think. Leslie Devitt, I do like some of that training. So a bit of a mixture of, because I do the behaviour side and the training, I kind of follow both sides of the coin. But I'm always, you know, I'm open to a lot of new stuff and, you know, new ideas coming out. And I think you can learn from young and old all the time. It's the same as trainers like Turid. Maybe some people will, you know, they might not kind of warm to her, but I think you can learn from someone that people don't necessarily think is qualified, but actually she's got so much experience of watching and observing dogs. So, and actually that's probably more than any of us really sometimes. So
yeah, the watching and the listening and the studying and the watching some more and then some listening some more and probably doing that for 10 years and then writing a book, you know. And just being very quiet while you're doing it all as well. It's really really, yeah, it is really interesting. Is there any kind of particular type or style of training that you're really into? I mean, you mentioned the dynamic dog stuff, and with that, do you get a call and someone says, I know you're a dynamic dog practitioner and we want help with this dog? Or is it that you now see your cases slightly differently and you're able to interpret and push for more help?
It's both of those. So
okay.
I do get direct calls. So I will get direct calls when they've started to learn about it, because it's becoming more popular now. So people are understanding that there is that service out there. Or like I actually incorporate it into all my behaviour consults now, because if I could be carrying on, doing the behaviour side, and actually I'm missing that. But now, unfortunately, once you've learnt it, you can't not see it, sadly. The thing is it has helped in my training case, like if I just do training one-to-ones, because, you know, if you're working with a dog, for example, and say something as simple as lead walking, and that dog prefers to walk in a trot because he's got hind end issues, and a lot of dogs like to walk in trot because it takes weight off the hind end. And then you think you're just doing a bad job of training, you'll realise that actually when you really kind of analyse that of course the dog can't walk at our pace because it's finding it really difficult. And I find it the same with recall, for example. You might be, you're walking down your standard route with your dog and you kind of follow the same route every day, and then you call the dog in and the dog kind of hesitates and looks at you like, really? And that could be just pain, the fact that it's got to now make that distance all the way back to you. And you get that hesitation. And it's the same with training. I've always been a mindful trainer, so if a dog doesn't want to sit, I'm not going to force it if there's another appropriate behaviour that it prefers. But if I see hesitation in a sit that might have been trained for a while, it could be because it's uncomfortable to sit for that dog as well. So I do think being more mindful of that just helps you be, helps the dog more, helps the owner more, so that they're able to see a little bit of why, because we do have a lot of labels of stubborn. And stubborn obviously is partly to do with them not doing what we want, which we are kind of being stubborn there ourselves. But part of it could be actually it's really uncomfortable to do that, and I can't do it, or I don't really want to do that. So
Yeah, and I guess we both trained with a company called COAPE to do behaviour, so we kind of work holistically anyway. But it's also looking at as an even more depth thing, because you might think, well, I've had the referral from the vet. The vet says everything's fine, and then you see the dog walking, and you think, well, it's not. Or it is with your dynamic dog work. Is it even more than just like musculoskeletal? Is it a bit more like,
yeah,
well, I think they've got a really sore tummy. They've got a GI
yeah,
thing.
exactly. Yeah, so you look at everything. So you look at the activities of daily living that the dog's doing, things that it can and can't do, from a posture and conformation and gait kind of view. But you also look at gut health, but you can see that sometimes in posture as well, because obviously they might be tucking their stomach, and but you kind of, when we do the consultations, and as I said, I do it for other trainers and behaviourists as well, who are really just struggling with a case, and they just want someone else's eye on it, and I work alongside them. But you're kind of trying to, same as we've always done with COPE, where we're putting a whole holistic picture together, but this nice addition to that, of being able to, I mean, it's a nice addition, except for when you're walking down the road and you see dogs that have no behaviour problems but might forever go on in discomfort, sadly. But it's a bit like when you learn body language, you never can unsee that. So but it really does kind of, it does open your world up to think, actually, these behaviours, I mean, obviously some dogs are in chronic pain, so they could be have had that from birth to now, and they could have been unruly for the whole of their life. And that's why, because they've had chronic discomfort. Some dogs are obviously, it be partly impacting their behaviour, but it might not be the whole reason their behaviour, which is why, even whether I have done the behaviour cases or training, I still do training and behaviour alongside this. But you'll be surprised how much. I was dealing with a resource carding case recently, where the dog was guarding after a walk, so it would lie down, and then if you went near its ball or went near its food, it'd launch across the room or come and seek you out, actually, in certain situations. Never bit, lucky enough, but really would have, if you pushed it. And then there was other signs it wouldn't come in from a recall, so they wanted to work on recall. So if it jumped in the water, it wouldn't come out. It'd just stand there like it was being defiant or stubborn. But actually, when we looked at it, the first moment I walked in through the door, I could see it was lame anyway. But then when it actually, I did the full dynamic dog process, and it had fused spine, fused ribs, hip dysplasia, and then elbow fissures as well. Had to have emergency operations on both elbows. So, and that dog was still chasing after a dummy, still running after a ball, still doing the normal dog things that you would expect.
Yeah.
And that was a spaniel, so, and it's even harder in spaniels to see that they're in discomfort. So.
They've got a very high pain threshold due to the job they do, right? So that's always something. And also, if we look at it from like a training perspective, getting back to more of a training thing, that kind of, that motivator of like, what am I finding more rewarding, like chasing a ball, guarding a ball, or relieving myself from this discomfort of pain. And clearly for that dog, the motivator was, that
and
was
ironically, as soon as so they did have the 2 operations, he's still having treatment, but actually the painkillers, as soon as he was on the painkillers, the guarding just went away. And actually, because he's always going to be in pain here and there, the actual indicator when he's worse is, sadly, his guarding appears again, and then they just readjust his meds. So it's sad, because he's never going to be 100% comfortable, but he's more comfortable than when I first met him. He was on the list of possibly being put to sleep, so
Oh, it must have been so sad and rewarding for the owners to see you, because they get to realise we've found someone that can help us, but also our dog's been like this for ages.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's rewarding as well. So.
It's hopefully for everybody involved, but it must be so hard to be like, yeah, they've been like this for a while and they've just been in constant pain for ages and ages and ages. So so do you run classes, Jo? Do you do one-to-one behaviour?
I used to run classes, but I do one-to-one puppy programs. So I go out to people's homes. We do everything from behaviour and training. So I run, so I kind of work with the dog that's in front of me, but I do cover the kind of key areas that you would with most puppies in a puppy class. So I'll do kind of everything from lead walking, toilet training, recall, weights, weight, all of those kind of safety areas as well. And I do focus on those key areas when I'm out with puppies. And I do one-to-one training as well. But as I do get a lot of behaviour cases more than anything now. But so I love the puppies when they come through. They give me a kind of break from behaviour. But yeah, I cover a bit of everything.
And did you we talked a little bit about, when you first kind of started working with dogs, you were a kennel maid, and that's probably something that if you were born this century, you've probably not heard that term much. If you were born in the last century, which makes us sound even older than we are, but it's good. You said, I realised I really wanted to work with animals, but then I found out I had to work with people. And did you do any work around that? Was it something that just came naturally to you once you'd practiced it a while and worked with some trainers, or any suggestions for people?
So when I was, as I said, I started at the kennels in where Batsy Dog's home in Windsor is now. It used to be a training college called Belmead Kennels, and so it was an NVQ in small animal care at the time, and you kind of looked after rescue and boarding dogs as well as rescue cats and boarding cats. So that was quite interesting for me as well, because of the dynamics between, you think actually all the rescue dogs would have most of the problems at that time, but actually the boarding dogs found boarding in kennels a lot trickier right then. And I learned I basically wanted to understand why dogs ended up there, and then kind of moved on to learning more about training and behaviour. So, but the training side of it was definitely interesting, because a lot of people, for the many reasons why dogs are given up to rescue, I just really wanted to help them not end up in rescue personally. Back then as well, because rescues have come on a long way, but back then it was a lot different. So
great. Yeah, I think as an industry, like it's absolutely exploded, and we've got more trainers and behaviourists, and a lot of burnout, sadly, than ever before. Have you ever, not wanting to get too personal, dive in, have you ever felt that kind of that burnout, that getting quite emotionally challenged by the work?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I definitely have been through it. I totally believe everyone should see a counsellor or something, or someone at least that they can talk to. I've had hypnotherapy for anxiety to support me, because you are taking on a lot of people's. I'm not saying problems, but you are. It's not just, you're not dealing just with the dog. Obviously, you do have to, get help with the person's. You're helping someone else as well cope with dogs' misbehaviour as such. And I think because when I had left Belmead, I ended up. My mum told me to get a proper job because I couldn't get a job in with animals at the time. So my mum got me into a proper job. Well, I found a proper job as such, and I ended up in kind of corporate industry for 13 years, but I was always doing dog behaviour and training on the side. But actually that taught me a lot, and I utilised a lot of the courses I learned as managers, because I was a manager for many years as well. That helped me through self-care, because that's really important, as well as helping understand other people's needs, and also not become combative with people when they might not do things the way you want them to do it, and kind of getting the best out of people by reinforcing their behaviour. So I learned a lot of managing that. But when it comes to burnout. I've definitely been through it, and the way I've managed that is by getting business support or business managers to look at my business and look at how I'm running it and just get an outsider's perspective. I've learned how to manage my time. I've learned how to schedule self-care in, and make sure that I guard my days off, because I used to just put in people on them days off when I actually couldn't. I just feel bad because I always want to help people, so I'd slot them in, and then I end up not being, having a normal life and working from, I still work late actually still now, but I've learned now when I'm getting too overwhelmed to just take some time out.
It's really hard, especially when people have got, you said you work with a lot of like street dogs and Romanian rescues, and these people have brought these dogs in thinking that they're doing their very best. They're bringing these dogs in from terrible situations, from kill shelters, whatever. And, they've thought they're getting one idea of a dog, and the actual reality of having one of these dogs is very different. And they're on the phone crying to you, and I'm sure you've seen it all, and you just want to help, don't you? And you're like, well, it's only an hour of my time, but I've got 9 people like that to see on top of all my normal work this week. So
I think also, because you do get that with any kind of rescue. You, especially the first few weeks, you kind of go into a bit of. Some people go into kind of a little bit of blues, and I wrote a blog about puppy blues as well, because a lot of people get puppy blues when they first get a puppy because they've kind of hyped it all up. It's the best thing ever, and then they've got a dog that they've got their expectations about how they should be managing the dog, as well as what the dog should be doing at this week. They expect toilet training to be done within a week, and them sleeping overnight, and that lack of sleep and that pressure on themselves ends up with this kind of, why did I get the dog? And I actually deal with a lot of people, I forgot about that, who use my free calls to support them in that transition, because they're at the point of wanting to let go of their puppy. So the same with rescue dogs, there is an element of anxiety that goes with having a dog as well, and I think people forget that sometimes.
Yeah, the books versus and the social media posts and the TV shows and the films, and they paint one idea of having a dog, when the reality is, like, you've got basically a newborn, especially with a puppy, you've got a newborn baby in front of you that is you're responsible for every single thing, and it is going to stick to you like Velcro, and it is going to want to be with you basically 24/7 for an not a small amount of time, and it is quite challenging. And for everyone has their own different problems that they have with their puppies, don't they? I'm sure when you've had dogs, you've had your, like, the quirks you had with your dog, and my dog, I thought she'd never be toilet trained, never. And I remember just sitting there after months after having her going like, I'm a dog trainer, I've been doing this a long time, this isn't meant to happen to me. It shouldn't happen to a dog trainer, right? So
I have to on that subject is that I do think that it is really important to get help from other peers and professionals, and especially if you have got a problem like that with your own dog, because you're too close to the issue. So it's nothing to do with your mad skills. I'm sure they're fantastic. It's just that you can't see what's not happening for your particular dog. So I do think having a group of professionals and like-minded people that you can just kind of hang out, chat, moan to, whatever you need to do, is so vital, because I very much lone wolfed it for years, and that's where I think I got burnout as well, because you just think you have to get it right yourself, whereas actually you're only human, and actually get someone else's opinion, or brainstorm something with someone can just give you an amazing idea, or you can it's no shame that you don't know everything sometimes. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And is that like one of the reasons that you joined the APDT, or what made you want to join the APDT all those years ago?
Well, I was lucky, all those years ago. So I was so lucky, because when I started thinking about the dog training side, I then just started researching other trainers in the area, and I just happened I didn't know particularly what APDT was about as such. I just wanted to look at the most credible ones at that time, but I still didn't know really what I was looking for or looking at. But I just happened to come across a couple of APDT members, which was Layla Oeltz and Marion Holt. Just contacted them, and then they were like, come down to my classes in Witten. And, you know, I spent there, as I said, I spent copious amounts of sitting there because I was really shy then. So I didn't really look at anyone or talk to anyone. And I just wrote notes and notes and notes and notes and notes. And that's how I was. And then I kind of started helping out in the classes. And then from there, started running my own classes. And then just course after course after course, and, you know, qualification and learning, and, you know, and I've become obsessed by it, really. There's not a day that I'm not thinking something about dog. so, but I definitely, with the books and with children, is definitely something that, although I don't predominantly work with children and families, I do as part of puppy courses, but I don't push it out. I definitely try and I work doing, sometimes helping on a course that does, basically she's a therapist that has her dog in the therapy sessions, but she runs a course for other, like, people that go use dogs in schools or in you know, therapy sessions with children. So I help out on the behaviour side, educating people about how to assess their own dogs the whole time they're in that environment. And of course they have my books as well, to, you know, just help the children have a talking kind of point with them about body language as well. So we go through everything from body language to how to let the dog have a break in them environments as well. So it's quite interesting stuff, and you deal with a lot of different people there. And it's fascinating, obviously, when you start teaching the teachers, because I go into a lot of schools with my books and I sit with the teachers, and they're just fascinated, and they're like, we never knew this. So I do think that a lot more, if we could get children educated much earlier, we would have adults that already know about body language. So, you know, could have a knock-on effect, couldn't it, if we taught it in schools? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so do you want to just hold your little books up to the camera so people can have a little look and just show the covers so they know what they're looking for? Yeah.
Oh, I can't see. Oh, look, I can't get your camera.
All right, it's
here.
Good. It's good. Perfect.
So,
and they're available on Amazon. They're available in lots of different places, aren't they?
Yeah, they're available on Amazon mainly. I used to have a publishing house, but I come out of the publishing house and then self-published them so that I could control the amount of money that I was charging, because they were wanting me to charge ridiculous amounts of money for them, whereas I'd wrote them for the fact I want to educate children. I wasn't trying to make money off it as such. So Amazon's where they're available at the moment, but I can actually get discounts myself. So if anyone's interested, they can always contact me via johinds.com. So
yeah, because like some schools or something might want to bulk order them, or so you're based in West London?
Yep, Ruislip, London. I cover kind of 20-mile radius, but I do some remote consultations as well. So yeah. A lot of the dynamic dog stuff I can do by remote consultation as well. So if someone's got, they need support, we do it via remote. So it doesn't matter where we are, because a lot of the dogs are sensitive anyway. So it's better that the owner videos them instead of us. So.
Yeah. And you can get the owner to do lots more stuff as well these days with video calling and sending clips over. And it's kind of so much easier now.
It is.
Perfect. Have you got anything else that you want to add, Jo?
No, I just thank you for having me, really. And it's a really good idea actually getting the other trainers on the spotlight here. So I really look forward to some of the others coming.
Yeah. Well, we have so many. We are, pretty sure we're still the largest. We're definitely the only not-for-profit. So all our membership fees get put back into the association. And we have so many amazing trainers that we really need to bring lots of different people on who maybe, like yourself, are not someone that goes, it's me you're looking for, really puts themselves forward for, because some people are great at that. That's just their personality type. And then others aren't. So when we had this Kids and Pets Day, I was like, well, I know who's written a book about those. That's Jo. So why don't we bring her on as the first one? It's yeah. So and obviously we had our fantastic National Puppy Day chat with Beverly Cuddy from Dogs Today and Jane Arden, one of our members, the other week. So yeah, long may it continue.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Well, we'll probably finish up there. Let everyone go and have some dinner. We will. The live will be available on Facebook and over on YouTube, and then we'll pop out a trimmed copy as well. Thank you everyone for watching, and thank you to Jo for coming. And I will see you soon.
It's been a pleasure. Take care.
Bye.